It was more than a pop phenomenon, much more. Because The Wizard of Oz wasn't just a flash in the pan. It's a magical movie, and it has lasting value.
Why don't you come along with us? We're on our way to see the wizard now, to get him a heart.
And him a brain.
I'm sure he could give you some courage.
But it was television that catapulted it over the top on the night of November 3rd, 1956.
With Bert Lahr, the original Cowardly Lion, and Judy Garland's then 10-year-old daughter, Liza Minnelli, on one of his knees, and a little Brooklyn boy named Justin Schiller, who at 13 was already a known Oz collector, on his other knee. They introduced the first network telecast of The Wizard of Oz.
They were very, very shrewd, these TV people. You know where they placed it? They showed it on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. A celebration of home, a celebration of Americana.
There were only a few channels back then, maybe 3 or 4 in each town. It wasn't like the hundreds of channels today. And there was no such thing as a tape or DVD. When a movie was shown on the tube, everybody watched it.
You could say that again.
I was 5 back in Wisconsin. I watched the movie that night with 3 cousins and 2 sets of aunts and uncles and my mom and dad, and everybody else had a wonderful evening. I had the life-changing experience.
It was a big family event. The whole family gathered to watch it on a black and white television set, so I had no idea it turned to color when we got to Oz. But I loved it. Didn't matter we didn't have any color to see those beautiful Technicolor scenes.
There's no place like home.
CBS then didn't show Wizard of Oz again for 3 years. They held it. They thought once a year would be too much. Well, they showed it again in 1959.
And the ratings, they went through the roof. They were astronomical.
It was like something like 45 million people. And then it started, once a year.
Everyone could remember where they were the first time they saw it.
I was 6 years old. I was living in Monterey, California. I remember my sister and I playing Wizard of Oz in the living room, marching around and singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. And from then on, I was hooked on Oz. I had to watch the movie every year.
It was like the 3 main events of a child's annual life. Birthday, the December holidays, be they Christmas or Hanukkah, and the night The Wizard of Oz was on. Part of the magic was that you could only see it once a year. You would sit there and think, oh, there's the cyclone. No, I'm not gonna see it for a year. Oh, but there's Munchkinland.
I also remember cowering and hiding my eyes whenever the Wicked Witch came on the screen. I was so terrified of poor Margaret.
I'm not afraid of a witch. I'm not afraid of anything.
What I remember is peeking out from behind the couch and just daring to take a peek at the Wicked Witch, because I could hear the sound of her in the tree, and I could, I knew the scenes where she was going to come.
Here, Scarecrow, wanna play ball?
And then I would hear that horrible cackle.
There's no question that it moved me profoundly and scared me, actually, deeply. And I'm sure it's when the flying monkeys appeared, and I was just, put me away. I was terrified.
My father was a TV repairman, and we were one of the first on the block to get a large color console TV, and he did this right before the annual showing of The Wizard of Oz. I think he had that in mind. And my parents, the day of the movie, were telling me, oh, you're in for a surprise, something wonderful is going to happen. And I remember being excited to see the movie anyway, but then when I actually saw her open the door and it burst into color, it was just, the most amazing thing.
You talked about it in school weeks before it was shown. Then you watched it, and then you talked about it the next day. It was such a special thing for everybody. That TV exposure to the baby boom generation introduced Oz to a gargantuan audience through a new medium, and its afterlife was incredible.
In 1956, coincidentally, when The Wizard of Oz was first shown on network television, that was also the year that the copyright expired on the book, The Wizard of Oz. From the very beginning, the Oz books had a certain amount of trouble with librarians and children's literature authorities.
Librarians have been very tough on some of our greatest children's books. In the 50s, it was The Wizard of Oz was Marxist.
And even when it reappeared on library shelves in the 60s, children and teenagers didn't cotton to it.
The books wouldn't be in print anymore if it wasn't for someone like Peter Glassman. I mean, Peter Glassman fought to get these books reprinted, and reprinted in a beautiful way, not just as a, a bargain book.
I came to the Oz books rather late, actually. I knew the movie backwards and forwards, and we had a copy of The Wizard of Oz on the bookshelf for as long as I could remember. It was my mother's childhood copy. The first edition of The Wizard of Oz had 24 hand-tipped color plates and 2 color illustrations on almost every other page. And recreating that was quite a challenge. And for the 100th anniversary of The Wizard of Oz, we completed the set by publishing Glinda, the 14th and last novel by L. Frank Baum himself. It was a great achievement and a great pleasure to do.
All of a sudden, producers and entertainment companies were flooding the market, capitalizing on the TV triumph of the MGM film.
By the early 1960s, there were 5-minute Oz cartoons. There was a special Shirley Temple NBC adaptation of The Land of Oz in which she played the Princess Ozma.
I'll have to say The Wizard was produced in 1967, and it was hosted by the Oz characters and animated by Chuck Jones.
I'll put a stop to that. And so...
One great television concept that got around MGM very cleverly when they did a cartoon series called the Oz Kids.
The idea was to try to make something that was as far away from the MGM film as possible, because it was not something that I wanted to compete with.
And that way, there was no competition with the famous images of Garland and Lahr and Haley and Bolger. These were supposedly the offspring. Dorothy's kids, the Scarecrow's kids, the Tin Man's kids, the Lion's kids.
Since really the early 40s, there had been attempts to do stage productions of the MGM film. It wasn't until the Royal Shakespeare Company decided to really do a sort of full-fledged stage adaptation of it, it really came to full fruition. And that production became sort of the template for all of the other stage productions, before even The Wizard of Oz on Ice, which sort of used that sort of adaptation.
The latest incarnation is Wicked, this amazingly successful prequel musical to the Wizard of Oz story. Now, legally, it is the prequel to Baum's book, but there are little MGM flashes that the audience just squeals with recognition.
I think it's really hard to even make a fantasy film without remembering the archetypes of the Wizard of Oz film, because they did everything so well.
And certainly it has influenced films like Star Wars in a different way, because it takes the sort of pop culture aspect of Oz and injects it into a very sort of contemporary milieu.
You had the hairy person and the metal person and the girl and the man going off on the adventure. And certainly, most significantly, with something like E.T., whether intentional or not, it's very apparent. E.T., for a lot of people, is Oz in reverse. Instead of a child, a normal child, going someplace fantastic and having to find a way home, you have the fantastic creature coming to normalcy and dealing with normal people here and having to find a way home.
The Wizard of Oz hasn't endured because of the novelty or the spectacle. It goes a lot deeper than that.
You've always had the power to go back to Kansas. I have.
Then why didn't you tell her before?
Because she wouldn't have believed me. She had to learn it for herself.
When a story and characters are familiar, as The Wizard of Oz has become, all of a sudden it's open to all kinds of interpretations.
Any great work of art is a metaphor. And into the mystery of this metaphor, people can project lots of meanings.
There have been feminist interpretations of The Wizard of Oz. Baum's country is indeed, to a certain extent, a matriarchy.
So many little girls we meet want to be Dorothy. They adore her. She's their idol and their role model. And she's a good role model.
She goes in as a woman and she's asking questions, she's talking to people, she's wanting to find her way back home. And I think that's a very feminine approach to a confrontation. And she shows us the strength of the feminine.
I didn't buy them.
No, but you tried to. It's bad enough picking on a straw man, but when you go around picking on poor little dogs.
She has the ability to help her friends as she meets them. She is the impetus for them growing or getting what they need.
Dorothy, where are you? It's me, Auntie M.
Traditionally, women and the feminine energy is more about connecting. It's not so much about achieving in the world, although we do, but it's much more about staying connected with the family, and that was where home was. That's a very feminine value.
We haven't really met properly, have we?
Why, no.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Very well, thank you.
If she never came along, the Scarecrow would have never moved out of that field, or the Tin Man would have never got unstuck. She is a tremendous catalyst for the action.
Then I'm sure to get a brain.
Each of those characters is missing a piece that the other ones have, so you put them all together, they make a whole, or more than a whole, like a super person. And she, because she's like a human, you suppose she has all those qualities. She has a heart, she has a brain, she has courage, but somehow helping the other ones find what they're lacking, she has more of everything.
That's like Over the Rainbow. That longing for that utopian peace, prosperity, unity, harmony, and what the film, I think, touches on. It does have that longing for joy and abundance, which are very distinctly American promises.
The bottom line, and I think this is the generally accepted image of Oz, is that this was indeed a unique utopia kingdom based firmly on American concepts.
Oz has become an institution deeply embedded in our lives. That was the atmosphere when MGM decided to sell off its assets, starting with old movie props and costume pieces.
This was in 1969, and they finally had the auction in early 1970.
Sold to H283. Next slide.
Nobody could believe that there was that kind of passion for movie memorabilia. And this was topped totally when they brought out the ruby slippers.
How much do I hear for the shoes? Started out, somebody, what were you giving? There they are. $1,000 too.
And that pair of ruby slippers brought $15,000, which was the highest price for a costume piece at that entire MGM auction. And everybody wanted them.
$15,000, I'm your third and last call. Are you all through? Fair warning. And they are sold. The bidder's number, please.
Now, those ruby slippers ultimately ended up at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. And as the people who are in charge there can tell you, they have had to replace the carpet in front of the spot where the ruby slippers are kept over and over and over, because people just come and stand and stare and look, and they come back and look again, and then they come back and look again.
One thing that's grown out of the Oz legacy is a huge fan base of collectors.
And if you know people who are manic Wizard of Oz collectors, their homes, it starts in a corner of a room, and then two walls of a room, and then a whole room, and then it spills out into the hall, and down the stairs, and into the basement.
I think that there is a sort of obsessive-compulsive nature that's built into every fanatical collector, and I think it sort of found me very young. When I went to college, I actually did give up for about 4 years because I thought, oh, time to become an adult. Got out of college, realized don't want to be an adult. Went back to it, and as I got older, the collection itself sort of took on a life of its own. I mean, I collect for the joy of it, and I wanted to keep this collection as a unit, overview of the entire Oz phenomenon. Really until the 50s, until the book went into public domain, there wasn't a lot of merchandise. This stuff really started to escalate in the 70s. By the time the 50th anniversary came around, there was just tons of stuff, and there continues to be tons of stuff, and I don't think it's ever going to abate. I was approached by a publisher in the year 2000, which was the 100th anniversary of the publication of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, to do a sort of overview of my collection. You know, I have something like 40,000 items, so it's a ton of stuff.
Other authors pursued the Oz books after L. Frank Baum, and the tradition continues today.
I decided I was going to write and draw my own Oz stories when I was in 2nd grade, probably about 7 years old. I decided I was going to continue the Oz series because other people had continued the Oz series after L. Frank Baum, and I was going to be the next one. When I sat down to write the graphic novels, I was very serious. I felt like, here I am with this legacy. I have to continue this, be true to this. Usually now when I write an Oz story, I just try to think, how can I approach this? To do something different, to have fun with this. So I said, I'm going to write an Oz thriller. So I just wrote this thing where Dorothy gets buried in the earth, and it's very exciting and very suspenseful. Of course, I've gotten some criticism in the meantime, but the reaction from Oz fans is, oh, that was kind of gruesome.
It's no surprise the wizard created a following of enthusiastic believers.
I think the Oz fans in Extreme are like any fans in Extreme.
Some fans have become especially attached to their favorite characters, finding ways to amuse and inspire audiences.
Why, there doesn't seem to be any lions or tigers or bears to worry about. It's the witch!
Something as a little kid in me snapped, and watching it when I was very young, I don't know if it was the green face or the hat or what was it, but there was just some charm to her character. She was just so vicious and very evil, and I wanted to be like that.
I'm Dorothy Gale from Kansas. Basically, how I'm referred to as Elaine Horn, nationally renowned Dorothy Gale impressionist. So that way I can bring Mr. Baum's Wonderful Dorothy, Judy's Dorothy, and a little of my own to make the picture of what an all-American girl should be like.
You call that long? Why, you've just begun.
My parents bought a VCR in 1980, which was the first year The Wizard of Oz came out on video. And I sold my bicycle to pay for the video cassette, which was a Betamax at the time. Now I own 17 copies, also in French, German, Swedish.
C'est vous, ma chérie, mon chemin de prise, et c'est bonne de me faire cette visite. Mille bruja de l'Oeste from El Mago de Oz.
I won't even go near German and Japanese. There's no, I can't. There's no way.
I'll get you, my pretty. And your little dog, too.
I will watch this movie, and I will get the same exact magical feeling that I did when I was a kid.
Oh my, whatever shall I do?
There's no place like home, even if there really isn't in your own personal life. That's good for me. I like that.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Legions of devoted fans are staking a claim everywhere. And among the many things that have emerged are regional Oz festivals and parades.
When the Oz Festival started back in the 1980s, I don't think anybody realized that they would burgeon the way they have, but they get bigger all the time.
The fans who came 20 years ago now bring their children.
Follow the yellow brick. How often do you watch The Wizard of Oz?
100 times. I love it.
And what is your character? Who are you?
Dorothy.
And who are you?
I'm the coroner.
When was the first time you saw The Wizard of Oz?
I was probably like 3, I think. About the same age as her, yeah. I think we saw it at the same time. Yeah.
What is your favorite part of The Wizard of Oz, sweetie?
How Toto runs away.
When the witch gets melted.
Is Dorothy your favorite character?
Yes.
Why?
Well, because she's a girl.
We always say at an Ozfest, the age range is from fetal to fatal. because it's kids in strollers to great-grandparents and everything in between.
These festivals bring together the surviving cast members from the movie.
What's wonderful, too, about the Munchkins' participation in these Oz festivals is the visibility and the recognition they have finally gotten. Perfect example is Meinhardt Robbie.
As coroner, shall we say, it's an honor, because whenever The Wizard of Oz is shown, the people who are 80, 90 years of age come to me the next day, oh, I saw the picture Wizard of Oz and I spotted you. So even people of that age, it's still a popular item because it's part of their youth.
He's really most sincerely dead.
He's written a beautiful autobiography that traces his various careers, but the centerpiece of it is the fact that he was the Munchkin coroner.
I love people, and I love to meet all kinds of people. And going out into this world and meeting everybody, we tell them we've got a big Oz family all over the world.
It feels great, and it makes us extra special because that is caused by the public loving us. And in return, we like to go to these different events to return back to the public what they gave us.
We go back to Oz over and over again.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Oh, my. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too. Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
It's almost impossible to watch television for a week and not hear an Oz reference, a paraphrase of Oz dialogue. I have a feeling we're not in Milwaukee anymore.
Follow the yellow brick road?
Follow the yellow brick road.
This weekend, I was returning a birthday present, and the woman started saying, oh, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
It happens all the time. It is in our language.
Hooray! We're off to see a wizard.
She's right. It's in our language.
He said oil can.
Oil can what?
It's in our blood.
My goodness, what a fuss you're making.
With the book and the movie, they've both become so ingrained in the American psyche that The Wizard of Oz has become the children's story by which America identifies itself.
Ouch!
Come along, Dorothy. You don't want any of those apples. Are you hitting my apples on what they ought to be?
It's not just a movie anymore.
It's kind of like a myth, something very strong, very archetypal that we all remember back to. And even if you can't remember all the details of it, it's like that whole journey is in your mind.
Unusual weather we're having, ain't it?
We can open our heart, we can find wisdom, and then when Dorothy really finds her way home, it's that she really finds her divine connection. And I think we're all hungry for it. I think we want to see that again and again.
That's right, we do. To Oz? To Oz.
And it will still tell people 2,000 years from now what is the noblest, the kindest, the gentlest, the very best of humanity.
It's become a touchstone for our culture with a mysterious, timeless appeal.
How long can it stay fresh in that can?
It's always fresh, it's evergreen.
Oh, you're the best friends anybody ever had. And it's funny, but I feel as if I've known you all the time.
It delights and enchants, but it instructs. It has a moral. It has a guide for living.
There has never been anything that's had that widespread influence.
It's a powerful film.
It makes us happy. It fills us with love and joy.
Shucks, folks, I'm speechless.
And yes, it brings us home.